Hey, Greg at TPR. Hey, we're going to show you on a Polaris Xpedition how to set up the proportioning valve on our big brake kit. This proportioning valve, how that works is it's going to control the bias from the front to rear on the brakes. So when the big brake kit on the Xpedition, you're going to have a lot more braking in the rear than what's needed. So we need to control that braking. So how we're going to do that is with a proportioning valve. And why is that important? There's two reasons it's important to control the bias from front to rear. So one is we want the vehicle to stay under control. So if you're at a high speed and your bias is not very close front to rear, if your rear brakes lock up, you're going to start to lose control of the vehicle. So we want to be able to get those rear brakes so that they're basically trailing right along with the front brakes so that they're almost locking up, but they're not locking up, and that'll keep us into control. The second reason it's really important is the Xpeditions do not have a PTL, which is called the Polaris torque limiter, which a Pro R has. So the way a torque limiter works is that's a clutch mechanism that's on the front drive shaft. So if you lock the brakes up front and rear and they're not locked up equally, that clutch will slip and allow it to normalize in the drivetrain instead of damaging the drive shaft. So these machines, the Xpedition and all the two-cylinder Polaris Razors, do not have a PTL. So it's very critical that we get the bias set up front to rear so that when you are actually on the brakes hard, you're not binding up the drivetrain, because the drive shaft will leave the party on this machine if you do not have it set up correctly. That bias is going to also be dependent on how much weight you have in the vehicle. So whether you have 4 people in it, you have 500-600 pounds of trail supplies in there. So we want to be able to get, for every application, it's going to be different. That's why we've designed this with a proportioning valve. Okay, so we're going to show you real quick how the proportioning valve actually works. This is what it looks like. It's got a knob on it. You're going to be able to turn this in or out to actually adjust the line pressure to your rear axle. So this knob has approximately 11 turns of rotation on it. For every turn is about 5%. So you're going to be able to do about 57% reduction to the rear is how much you're going to be able to do. So when this valve is screwed all the way in like this, that basically gives you no reduction at the rear. It would be like this valve not being in there. And then as we screw the valve out, that actually starts reducing the amount of line pressure to the rear. So we're going to go over here and we'll kind of show you where it's at. So this is on your front with our new master cylinder bracket in here. It bolts underneath. You can see it's very accessible. You're just going to come in here and you're going to turn the valve. So the way that that's going to happen is we're going to go out in two-wheel drive and we're going to do some tests on the trail, and we're going to show you how well that valve works when we start adjusting it. So we definitely want to do the test in two-wheel drive. When you're in two-wheel drive, you're not going to damage the drive shaft because your front and rear diffs are not locked together. So we also recommend, if you're going to do hard trail riding at like high pace, no matter what, it's almost better to do in two-wheel drive because you're going to be on the brakes really hard. If the vehicle has really aggressive brakes like this is going to have now, you're going to have the potential to damage that drivetrain. So use your four-wheel drive when needed. These cars don't really have enough power like a Pro R to where you're not going to break axles in two-wheel drive if you're just out on trails. So now we're going to go out on the trail. We're going to show you how it works and let you guys in. Okay, we're out here on the trail. We got Luke M Films with us. We picked a good spot, nice flat graded road, just kind of hard packed with a little gravel on it. We're going to go over setting up the proportioning valve. So a couple key things. We want to make sure we have it in two-wheel drive with turf mode off. So we want the two rear axles locked together. We're going to start the test with the proportioning valve all the way out, which means you're going to have maximum reduction to the rear, which is 57%, which means we'll have 40% braking in the rear, 100% braking in the front. What we're going to do is we're going to go do a pass with it the way it is. We're not going to have a lot of braking in the rear. So the front's going to dive harder, but the rear brakes are not going to lock up. And then every time we do the next run, we're going to screw the valve in one turn, which gives you 5% more brake in the rear. So let's go out on the trail, start doing some tests and see what we can do. Okay, so that was test number 1 with 57% reduction in the rear. As you can see, the rear brakes did not lock up at all and the front dove real hard. So now we're going to go do another run. We're going to turn the knob in one turn. So that'll give us 5% more braking in the rear, and let's see what it does. Okay, so that was test 2. We've got the proportioning valve turned in 1 turn, which is 5%. So our reduction went from 57 to 60% to 55, which means that we have 100% braking in the front still, like we've always had. And in the rear, we're at 45% braking in the rear. So now we're going to do 1 more turn, which will put us 50% braking in the rear, 100% braking in the front. So it'll be exactly split in half front to rear. And as you can see on that pass, we still weren't dragging the wheels. So we're going to go 1 more turn and we'll go test it out. Okay, so that was test 3. So we were 50% braking in the rear with 100% braking in the front. You can kind of see the rear wheels are just starting to grab when we're stopping. So I think this next turn is actually going to put us right to that teetering point. So we just want the rear wheels to almost be locking, kind of grabbing and releasing with the front. So I'm going to come down on the brakes a little bit harder this time because the front brakes will lock up. We're going to go in 1 more turn. So that'll put us at 55% braking in the rear and 100% in the front. So let's go in 1 more turn and see what we can do. Okay, so that was test 4. We were 3 turns in on the proportioning valve, which is 15%. The proportioning valve is roughly 57 to 60% reduction in the rear when it's turned all the way out. So where we're at right now is basically we have 55% of the braking in the rear that is possible for the machine with 45% reduction from the proportioning valve. And as you can see, we're right on that tipping point. The rear wheels are locking up right with the front. So now what we're going to do is we actually have an extra passenger in there with us right now, and we have 300 pounds of gear in the back. We're not going to make any changes. We're just going to take that 1 passenger out, take the gear out of the back, and then we're going to do another hit, and you're going to see that the rear wheels are going to lock up completely. So that's going to kind of explain how important it is. Depending on your payload, you can adjust it to get it right in that sweet spot. Okay, so that was test 5, which was the same as test 4 on the proportioning valve. So we had 55% braking in the rear with 45% reduction. And the only difference in that pass was we took all the gear out. So we took approximately 300 pounds of sandbags out of the rear and a 150-pound passenger. And you can clearly see how much difference it makes in the rear as far as what's going on with that proportioning depending on the weight. So the goal is to not have your rear brakes lock up before your front. That's the biggest safety goal. If your rear brakes lock up before your front, the ass end's going to want to come around. And then the second objective is to get that drivetrain equalized. So we want the front and rear brakes to be very equal so that we're not binding up the drivetrain. So that's pretty much it. It's going to be adjustable to everybody's individual application, and that's the cool factor of it. So I hope you guys have fun with it.